that's where true leaders really shine. It's in those challenging markets. It's easy to be a great leader when things are good and interest rates are 3%. It's people like you who really rise when things get difficult.
It was something for us that we had to stop looking at ourselves and looking at other people and serving our community like we should be, honestly controlling what we could really control, which is our attitude, our experiences for our clients.
In today's episode, we're joined by Shelly Panzarella, top loan officer from Las Vegas, Nevada. Hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave me any comments that you have. I'm here with Shelly Panzarella. Shelly, thank you for joining me.
Hi.
So, look, you're a highly successful mortgage professional here in Las Vegas. So we're going to talk a little bit about mindset, thought process, things of that nature, because those are the things that really, I believe, set you apart from your competition. You do better than most. So let's dig in a little bit here. So, your career building over time, you've been doing the business a long time, but I'm sure at a certain point you realize that you could be successful in this. I want to know, what point in your career did you realize like, hey, I'm really good at this and I can do well?
Wow, that's a great question. I still feel like there's so much more to learn from it, but I think I would say coming off of what we just came off of with the higher interest rates, that was really a test of strength, perseverance, mindset, and whether or not this is a career that I can continue to do. Because I think, 2021, it was a little easy for us to do business. And so that was definitely a big reset for myself. And now that we've kind of come through it, not all the way through it, but definitely better than where we were, I feel like that has helped me to realize like, a lot of people actually folded during that time, when rates increased, and the cream rises to the top. And that's where I feel like I've been for a little while. And it's just in realizing it's all the basic stuff that we've known and we've done,
So in some way, even survival can be evidence of your success, right?
Sure.
And how good that you are at the business. As you made it through the 2021 and then out into this higher interest rate environment, can you point to or identify something that was sort of that aha moment for you? Like, okay, I'm past all this and I'm moving on and I'm focused. And here, was there a point in time when you realized that was that you were ready to move forward?
So I think we've even had that conversation because my business partner and I, Jared, right, we were like looking at each other. I think it was like July of last year. And we're like, maybe this is it for us. Like 25 years in the industry, maybe we're just going to call it. It's been a good run. And we kind of made this decision. We're either going to die or we're going to grow. And we came to you and we're like, hey, we've been kind of floating around. We're ready to go back into an office. We're ready to recommit our team to go back into the office. And we just made that decision that we're going to grow while other people are starting to pull back. This is our opportunity to go.
Yeah. And that's where true leaders really shine. It's in those challenging markets. It's easy to be a great leader when things are good and interest rates are 3%. But I think it's people like you who really rise when things get difficult.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is, I know for myself, it was, we all played the pity party, right? Oh, rates are higher. I think you heard everybody like, I don't know if I'm going to, like everybody's pulling back on expenses and all these things. And it was something for us that we had to stop looking at ourselves and looking at other people and serving our community like we should be, and honestly controlling what we could really control, which is our attitude, our experiences for our clients, our helping serve our realtors and everything. So
if I was to shadow you for a day or two, what would I see as your most defining personality trait?
Well, I would like to think that it's because I call myself, and a lot of people tout me as like the mortgage motivator. So I know yesterday I just wrapped up a 13-week class with 30 realtors, and we were just going over how they can actually build their listings in the Valley. And I think coming out of that, the biggest thing that they were saying was, thank you so much for inspiring us. Thank you so much for holding us accountable. Thank you so much for just caring about us to want to put something like this together.
And so would you say is confidence or humility for you more critical to your success?
I would say for me, it's been humility more than anything. I mean, I think there's that inner confidence that's always been in me, but the humility aspect of it for me is something that I think everybody would say. I'm a humble leader.
Yes, and I think I would agree with that as well. And I think that people are attracted to that, in general, that being confident when it's necessary
Sure.
and when it's required, but also having that other side of you, I think is something that I notice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
The softer side of Shelly.
Exactly, yeah. Just to kind of talk a little bit, shift gears a little bit, I guess. What sacrifices have you made for the mortgage business? And if you look back on that, or even today, would you say they were worth it?
I mean, I think time. I think now that my daughter is turning 20 in this year, and she's away from college, and so we're empty nesters. I think that would be the one thing. Our mindset's always been hustle and grind, or at least mine has always been hustle and grind. I wish I would have taken a little bit more time to just slow down. I think COVID taught us that. I think this coming out of COVID also has taught us that. And if I could just take back a little bit more time and maybe, I mean, I think today I've built a really good relationship with a lot of my agents and where we respect each other's boundaries. And I don't think I had the confidence to kind of be that person for them before, right? Where they know, and I don't have a kid at home now waiting for me, but before I wish I would have been strong enough to have said, hey, a 10 o'clock phone call for a pre-call can wait till tomorrow morning.
That's amazing. So would you say it was worth it though, those sacrifices?
I would. I mean, I think even for my daughter, looking at her work ethic, and although I would tell her now, like there are times when you've got to create the boundaries, but I would say for sure it was worth it.
Hmm. And so how do you stay motivated in this business? It's full of ups and downs, right? And I know you do coaching as well.
Yeah.
So it's probably easier for you, or at least on the surface, it seems easier for you than it might be for others. But let's face it, this business is full of tough rejection. It's full of it's full of bad news. And how do you stay motivated through all of that?
I mean, I honestly don't, and maybe this is good and bad, but I feel like I'm that Pollyanna sunshine that I really don't play into the negativity. I'm really big on energy, like in having good positive energy in the way that I give it and the way that I receive it. And I like news is really like if I hear somebody telling me about the news, that's when I know something has happened. Even with interest rates, sometimes I'm like, okay, so rates, whatever might have happened in the market. Not to say that I don't look at interest rates, but it's not something that impacts my day, so to speak, right? Like, oh my goodness, the market's rallying, so now we're gonna have higher interest rates today, and that impacts how I show up to work. I do a lot of I have a great morning routine, and that has been my foundation for the last, I'd say, 5 years. That if I don't do it, whether I'm coming into work or not, like Monday through Friday or whatever that might be, I can feel like I'm off. So that definitely has been, that's the solid foundation for me. And then, obviously just keeping myself positive throughout the day.
But it's easy to say I keep myself positive. There's a mindset that takes place there, because
Yeah.
I feel like that is one of my strengths. It's being able to, okay, disconnect from negative and
Mhm.
move forward to whatever is next in my day in a positive light, no matter what I just went through. How do you do that?
I think so. That's for me. I know and I can feel the energy levels of myself personally, and then even with my team, I can feel if I walk into my office and there's some craziness going on, and I'll usually go in there to just try to figure out if I can go in there and help to dampen the craziness or negative energy. But then I also want to be the one that's the catalyst to see the positive side of it, and some of that is just me always going towards that side, right? Like, well, what do we need to see on a positive side of this, or how do we see the out if if we're stuck in a specific loan, or client might be being a little bit more challenging than others, whatever. So
I guess it starts with an awareness.
it is. Oh, for sure.
And
Yeah.
being aware of the fact that there's something different in the office, and you
Yeah.
talk about energy, so
Yeah.
you're dialed into that, just that vibe that might
Yeah.
be happening in the office, and then taking the leadership approach to say, I'm not going to let this derail the team or the day, but I'm going to get us back on track. And even though you may want to go into your office and cry, right? You're gonna put on that face and keep everybody focused.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to, right? If we're going to spend so much time in stressing ourselves out, the negative energy side of it, I mean, that's honestly, if you ask my team, that's probably the one thing they'd say. Shelly always says, hey, are we going to spend time on negative energy or positive energy?
Yeah.
Like, what is it what's going to solve this problem? Is it in complaining about it, or is it actually trying to find a way to resolve it and fix it?
Have you always been this way?
I feel like I have. I want to say yes. I think you'd probably have to ask other people around me, but I do feel like, yeah, I would say so. Because I think a lot of people say, oh, Shelly's just the rainbows and gumdrops and Pollyanna sunshine. But I that's just how I am. You know?
Because for some of us, and I think I fall into this category, I had to really learn it.
Yeah.
I used to let everything bother me, and then got to us. Maybe it's just maturity,
That could be that.
or getting tired of being, upset all the time. But,
Yeah.
there was a mind shift that I had to undergo, and kind of a process where I got to a point in my life. So that's it's interesting to talk to somebody who may have always been that way.
I definitely feel like it has, for me, I protect my peace a lot now and calmness so I can't say early 20s, because I do remember people used to call me the Tasmanian devil, where I would just like chew, 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 and cause fires throughout I was probably the negative energy at that time. So I guess to answer your question, probably not, now that I'm reflecting. But definitely realizing what that creates within, yourself, the team and everything. I know today that that's not me.
Yeah. I feel exactly the same way. You have a responsibility, right,
You
as
do.
the leader, to provide that that positive perspective. And you can drive the ship down just as fast as anybody.
100%,
Right,
100%.
What support does your family play? In all of this for you, in terms of your day to day, the support that they give you? Has that been important to you?
Well, I mean, my husband, throughout the years, in the beginning, it was always like, I got to go to these networking events, and they're never during business hours, right? They're always 6 to 8. I mean, early on, it was like when we would go to clubs, it was always, I don't know why at the clubs. And he was always he never really said anything, honestly, just super supportive around that. And even in the, even in phone calls, and maybe we'd be at dinner, and I mean, honestly, we'd be at dinner and a phone would ring and I'm like, money's calling, I gotta go. And so I think from that standpoint, super supportive in that. And then even with my daughter, I mean, she always knew if I was at home and I was working, she'd just roll right up next to me and with her little Barbie computer, and we would just type away together. So from that standpoint, I think that was the biggest support.
I think for all of us, it's the same. If things are not good at home and you don't have that support, it makes it very difficult to do this job.
Yeah,
I think so.
I would agree.
What would you say is your biggest fear? This is, again, challenging business. I know there are things that keep me up at night. What keeps you up at night?
We have been in a space of really trying to grow our culture in our team. We're all reading a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And it talks about how the leader, the owner of the company, really worked towards shifting the whole restaurant to this unreasonable hospitality. And it's, I think as Jared and I have looked at our team, I mean, we feel like we're the best in the Vegas Valley. And there's only, when you're here, what can you do to make it even higher, right? And so for us, it's we want to just create an amazing experience, not just for our clients, of course for our clients, but even for ourselves inside of the office. So that's been a really big challenge for us, just in making sure we have the right people. And the biggest fear from that is sometimes you have to say goodbye to some of the people, or you have to, not goodbye, but you have to definitely have some really tough conversations and trying to move the ship in the right direction.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I would say that's also a fear of mine, is that the people around me don't understand the culture that I'm trying to create.
Yeah.
Which is what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the challenge. Has fear ever held you back?
I mean, yes, like in different fashions specific to the mortgage industry. I think early on, it was always just the fear of like going up to a top producing realtor, and trying to earn their business. And really, I think it's just approach in that perspective over the years and just realizing who I am and how I can help serve our clients and our agents. The confidence level is built, so I really don't have that fear. So now I think right now with the contribution aspect of it, the team aspect of it, that's been really the biggest focus for us.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about your team a little bit.
Mhm.
What do you think is important to creating and maintaining strong relationships with those people who support you?
I know for us right now, it's really been about communication. Communication, whether it's good and or bad. And whether it's we've made a mistake on a file or we've done great on a file and we've, gotten a file from zero to clear to close in 8 days or whatever it might be. And honestly celebrating those wins, but also having the courage with each other to have tough conversations where it's not personal, like this is business and we're just trying to get better day in day or each and every moment. So
And how do you, because this is very important, I think, in any organization, is
Yeah.
how do you make them feel valued?
I think a lot of it is even, as simple as like anytime I walk into the office, the first thing I do is put my bag down and I go say hi to everybody. Making them
Simple.
feel seen, right? Just making, I know I enjoy that when somebody comes in, I'm like, hey, I'm over here, say hi. That's it. And then I think there's small little ways that you can celebrate. And we've been really trying to hear each other, meaning like, I think we have somebody's birthday, and those are, I think, kind of the basics is like birthdays, anniversaries. But we hear their kids going to play or in a play, or we hear that they're celebrating something big. We want to be able to also appreciate them and their family because I think that honestly speaks to them like, oh, they really hear me and they care.
And it can be just the smallest things that make such a big difference to people.
Yeah.
What would you say if I was to have your staff sitting here, what would they say is your most admirable trait?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. They do tell me every once in a while that I have the gift of gab because I don't think that they want to be the one because they know that I'll always go out there. I do all the training, coaching, speaking. And then also with the team meetings with them, I love to just chat with them. Plus with them, I'll just sit down and talk. But I think for them, I'd hope that they'd say that I approach everything with a can-do attitude. And it helps them because I'm not stuck in, well, what did you do wrong? We'll talk about what we need to do to fix things moving forward, how it becomes lessons learned. But for them, it's always like, okay, how do we just get through this and figure this out for our client, for you, for us?
So you've really opened this sort of, I don't know, to me, it feels like a very open culture within your office where there's a lot of communication, a lot of dialogue. It's okay to make a mistake, but you're going to coach and train on the other side.
Yeah.
How do you kind of balance that demands of the business? You have to be the boss, you have to be confident, but yet on the other side, sort of also be willing to pat someone on the back and dust them off when they make a mistake. How do you approach that?
That's really been the toughest part, right? It's and the one thing I have to remind myself is that it's the problem, not the person. And so if you say like something happens, we have to remind ourselves, okay, it's not this person's not intentionally messing up or making a mistake or not paying attention or whatever it might be, not hearing, whatever it might be, that there's something, whatever it is, right? Maybe it's their over capacity. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe there's something personally going on. You know what I mean? And really or maybe they just didn't understand the mistake that they made. And so for me, it's that. And I usually will approach it like, listen, this is business. This is not personal. So whatever comes out of this conversation, you have to understand that it's not because we don't like you, because we love you to death, and it's not because we think you are not good at whatever it is that you're doing. We have this problem and we need to figure out how to fix it so that it doesn't continue to happen. Because if we're really working towards unreasonable hospitality, we just have to continue to get better.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned your partner, Jared. How does that, partnerships can be challenging, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
What would you say do you guys have challenges in your partnership, in the way you look at the business? Maybe you have different personalities, obviously.
We do.
It-
Yeah.
What? How does that work?
It's I mean, honestly, like my work husband, right? And we, just like every marriage, there's always a good yin and yang in order for it to be really good. We have a lot of great similarities, which I think it's at the core of why we're working towards the team and the camaraderie and the culture and all that. What we've identified is we get to the same place as far as business. It just might be different ways to get there, and that's okay. I think even for our team, like it's the word we've talked about is grace. But Jared and I feel like we've grown together, and I think that with a marriage too, you've got to continue to make sure that you're growing. We check in with each other all the time because his business and my business is different. And honestly, I tell him all the time, I'm like, I learn from you every day, and vice versa. The perspective and in fact, we had a conversation the other day about a VA application, and we were arguing about what we ask as far as like branch of service. And I was like, well, why do you need that information? He said, we put in the application. I'm like, where do you put in the application? And we asked the same questions, but he applies it in a different way. And I applied it, I just do it for my own benefit to know branch of service. And he's a veteran. And it's, my point in that is that we say the same things, we act the same way, we get to that destination a little bit differently, and we honor each other because of that.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest part of our partnership.
Yeah, because it can be difficult, but from the outside looking in, you guys, I believe you've figured out strengths and weaknesses
For sure.
and how to leverage those for each of you to the benefit of the team.
I would agree on that. Yeah. And we've most recently, I feel like, when we had that conversation of, are we just going to die, or are we going to grow? It was really that conversation, and we both committed to each other that we were going to move forward. And it's been a great journey. And it's been short-lived so far, but.
Well, thank goodness that was your decision.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I would have liked it the other way for sure. Let me ask you about relationships. How important are relationships to you, not just with your team, but obviously with the industry in general? You've done a great job at building relationships, and it's obvious anybody watching this is going to see why someone might like you. But how important are relationships to you?
The right relationships are, for me, that's really what I've been trying to craft in my partnerships. And it's not to say that I don't love every realtor, because I really do want success for everybody. But I have, and this is coming from a course of, 25 years in the business. I really do want to work with people who want to work with me and who really want to be vested and invested in mutual growth. A one-sided relationship to me it doesn't benefit me, and that's not the right word. It doesn't benefit either one of us, to be honest with you. So that's been really important for me.
And you've earned that, right?
So
yeah, you get to a point where, and I think that's the right approach to it, because people are not always a match with us. But at this point in our careers, we've been doing this long enough where it should be mutually beneficial, and it should feel good to work with each other.
Yeah, I really do pride, like the last year and a half, I would say I did more in really growing my one-on-one relationships with what I would consider to be my top tier realtors. And it was, weekly, sometimes bi-weekly meetings with them just to touch base, to talk about marketing. Honestly, even in some cases, it was like therapy session, right? Because they can't really talk to their spouse. I don't know if they have a therapist, but we would just talk about what's happening in their business. And some of it too, I would hear from another realtor, and they know, of course there's anonymity around it, but I'd say, hey, just, somebody else is having the same problem. Here's what yeah. So that I think had deepened my relationships. And I feel like today, those are the ones that will stand the test of time.
Deeper, not wider, as
Absolutely.
they like to say.
100%.
Well, I'm going to finish with this last question.
Okay.
I like
it's been hard.
Well, you've done great, by the way. So, look, I got to ask you, what advice would you give somebody who is considering coming into the mortgage business at this time?
Oh my. 25 years in the business, I would say, honestly, relationships are key. And whatever pillar or path you take, whether it's realtors, consumer direct, CPAs, strategic partners, whatever it might be, it's really to go deeper into your relationships versus wider. I think that will definitely stand the test of time for your career. My uncle got me into the business saying, this is the hardest job to make 30,000 and it's the easiest job to make 100,000. And I used to tout that all the time thinking that was great. But now it's all about all of the different people that we're serving and helping to create, memories for families and even with our agents. And so go to build those relationships, go deep.
Great advice. I love it. Well, Shelly, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. This was wonderful. Appreciate you being here.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.